Hello, welcome to another episode of the Patient First Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Bryan Laskin. And of course, at the Patient First Podcast, we are looking to increase the influence of today's engaged dentists. And we have a special guest today, which I'm excited about. Steve Anderson is with us. He is a 30-plus year general contractor that has completed over 1,000 design-build dental offices. He's authored Blueprints for Success, which he's taught for over 10 years at 2 dental schools by him, and recently authored DentalEase, the essential guide to building the stress-free dental practice of your dreams. That's sold in hardback, ebook, and audio. Thank you very much, Steve, for being here. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Bryan.
I've got to tell you, I wrote a book and I released the audio book recently on Audible, and I recorded it myself. One of the hardest things I ever did was recording my own audiobook. Writing the book came easily, but recording it was a challenge.
I applaud you. I gave up, and at the point I had done so many revisions, I hired a professional to do the audio for me.
Yeah, I don't know if there's nothing to applaud there. It's just pure tenacity, right? Muscling through it. Thanks, Steve, for being here. I always marvel, there is this kind of cool niche. We were talking a little bit beforehand about how building offices, such a cool skill to have. How did you get into dental and focusing on dental practices?
Back in 97, driving to work one morning, I'm tired. I'm fed up. I'm just a number. I have no value. And something needed to change. We all go through that. There are certain things what is that pain point? That pain point for me was just giving quotes, and that's all it was just a number. And I realized that it was about creating value. And it's no different than what dentists do out there is when they create that value and create that relationship, they succeed. They do extremely well. And I started thinking, okay, so my next question was, who needs help? And I hate to say it, but dentist was at the top of the list. And I thought, okay, so I came up with the name Denco Dental Construction. And by the time I got to work, I said, okay. And I started turning down all the residential, and I got rid of my other industrial and hazardous projects and started just focusing just on dental. And the next best step I did, never guess what it is.
You built your own building.
No. I took 8 successful dentists to lunch individually.
Okay.
And I talk about an eye opener, asking those hard questions. What could I do better? What should I do now? And just what a great feedback that I got. And just from there, I felt led that I should be doing lecturing at the colleges. And that was a journey in which I compiled a bunch of notes over the years, and by the time I got to 2008, I was going gangbusters, and all of a sudden the bottom fell out, and I had time to finish my first book, and then I went on a few years later and finished my second.
So a couple of things I want to ask about. Number one, I want to highlight something you did that I think dentists could learn from, right? To find out how to best position your business, you took 8 kind of your ideal customers out to lunch.
Yes.
I think dentists could probably do the same thing with their 8 best patients in their practice and ask them about their experience at their practice, see what they should be leaning into, what they should be cutting out. I think that's one of the things that I like doing is looking at, outside dentistry and how we can apply it to dentistry. And I think that what you did was very intelligent. I wonder how many dentists have actually done that. So it's a good tip for the dental practices listening today. But what I really want to talk about is the thing that every dentist that was just listening said. You said we need help. Why
Yes.
were dentists at the top of your needing help list, sir?
Oh.
I mean, every dentist, you skipped over that very quickly. And I know every dentist is going, why us?
Well, I thought back about all the hurts, missed opportunities, walking into the final walkthrough with the client, and we open up a door and say, what's this? And it's a $800 mop sink, and the client wanted a $50 mop sink. It's missed expectations. It's getting burned. Are they being taken advantage of? And the issue of being intimidated and then not understanding their surroundings and what message they're giving. And then the biggest thing is, so what now? What the next step? I constantly heard, what do I do now? Steve, you helped me with this floor plan. You helped me with this great project. I don't know what to do now. And then it's what you don't know. I mean, how many clients I've sat down with and they say, here's the plans, let's go to work. And I said, time out. I said, let's take a step aside and put those aside and let's talk a minute and find out really what's driving this project. And what's really surprising is how many times that it's not right on, it's out to the left field or right field, or it's missed some major points. One of them sticks in mind where the office was permitted and the doctor for 10 years had a pain point. The pain point was he had not enough room between the head of the patient and the head wall. But what did he have on the other side of that head wall? A huge 6.5-foot hallway that he could have moved that wall back. And it was a simple modification. And he was about to take on someone that was going to be 125 pounds bigger than him and 6 inches taller as an associate. And it wasn't going to work. So it's just asking those extra questions that so often don't get asked.
That's great. I know you focus a lot on leveraging what you do to make dentists to avoid pitfalls like that, right? What are those pitfalls that you see dentists falling into?
Overall, it's the things that we just mentioned, and getting sold Kool-Aid, and they drink the whole thing. And point in case, they go to a seminar for the weekend, and wow, they just bathe in it. They love it and everything about it. And it feels so good. And then they come back and they talk to their architect, or I think of how many times they've come to me and say, here's the book, here's the program, here's everything that I just learned, build it for me. And I said, time out, and set it aside. And we talked some more. And I said, okay, you're going to keep about 20 or 30% of this. And they go, what? How can that be? Well, because they drank the Kool-Aid. And that's what sets the book apart, is it's about how to have the dentist realize who they are and create the dream and build the dream and make it reality for them. And do it in a simple, systematic process to help them save time, money, and effort. And there's people out there that'll spend $50,000, $60,000 to hire people to do that, but the book does it in just a very simple format. And then I also give all the forms I've created over the years on compilation budget and cost breakdowns and flow charts and critical path and the planning the move and all those type of things. But it's really that issue of what happens is the disconnect. That's probably the biggest issue, is not having someone on your side or hiring a professional that really isn't about them. We've all experienced that, getting suckered into something. A great salesperson, we get suckered into something and all of a sudden we're paying a lot of money. And example of the Kool-Aid is one client loved the program and went and flew out of town and spent $10,000 on a program to design their office. They didn't have the floor plan finished yet, but they were doing all the finishes because they really liked what he was talking about. What I found was interesting is a month later, I'm in his office and he shows me this board and I said, well, that's nice. And I'm thinking to myself, this is not him. This doesn't fit. And so what I did is I said, toy with me, bring your wife and come to my office and give me 3 hours. And we're going to talk about your space and design. And we went through it. And we first opened up the thing and looked at it, and then we closed it, set it aside. And when we were all done, we kept one thing, and that was the accent color.
Wow.
But he spent $10,000 on something that he got suckered into. All of us have done that. I don't even want to give you the list of things I've been suckered into over the years. That's what I talk about in the second chapter in the book, is how to find those people that really are about you rather than about their wallet. And it's really opens your eye to the reality of finding a team that really is purposeful in making your dream reality.
So it's really about customizing the design towards the vision of the dentist. Is that correct?
Yeah. What's interesting is there's a return. Do you know?
Yeah, you were sharing some statistics with me before this podcast. Could you share, kind of talk about the return? Like, what's the size of the prize when you build a new practice or remodel?
So what's interesting is there's different design levels. So some programs, some professionals you go to say all of the offices need to be built up here. And I say, phooey, that's not correct. But what you do need to do is build to the level of who you are. And what I mean by that is I had an office over in Central Phoenix that we built, and it was the lowest design level I've ever done in my life. And he excelled and he just grew gangbusters. Why? because he understood himself and he understood his neighborhood, very low income, but he just knocked it dead. And then I've also done it where it's some very high level offices, and I've done a lot of in between, but it's their level. It's not the designer. It's not the architect. It's not the developer. It's not, that other professional telling you what you should do. It's about being comfortable with who you are and what's important to you.
I can recall a story from my personal experience when we built my office. I think went through three architects, and then I finally ended up firing the architect and just said to the builder, can we just do this without them? Right. And that was one of the smartest things I did, because the architect was building a wall, tearing it down, and having build it again based on what they wanted to do, never even asked.
Yeah,
I don't think that's uncommon, right?
No, it's not. And I've had people, literally one sticks in mind, where we were at the dental expo, and the next week he was going to go out of town to have this major company help him design his office. And I said, just be aware that you love this system, you love this head wall unit, you love the chair. You're not going to have this head wall when you come back. And he said, no way. And I said, here's $100, and I bet when you come back, you won't have that head wall. He didn't have the head wall. I won the $100. And it was a situation where he said, we spent the whole time talking about foo-foo, rather than talk about the meat of the matter. What makes you money? Your operatory, number one. Having it set up exactly to what works best for you and how you are. I've done over 1,000 offices and not one is alike. Well, how many dentists are alike? And that's where I get really frustrated in a lot of these programs. It's suited for them. It's not suited for the dentist and that individual they're working with. But the payoff, that's what what started this conversation was the payoff. If you build a design level of who you are, the national average is 34% increase in revenue for the first 2 years. What can you invest your money in and have that kind of return?
Yeah. And I certainly saw that in my practice when we built the building. I mean, that's over 30% increase. So over a third increase in your money in the first 2 years, right? What type of investment is on average that people are putting in to get that type of return?
So that's for either doing a major remodel or going into a new office.
Okay.
Cost of construction, boy, it varies all around the country. As you know, we've had, for our area, it's gone up 25% in the last year for cost of doing a new tenant improvement. The average right now is about 150 or so a square foot in this area. But what's interesting is you go over to Texas and some of the other areas, it might be 120, 130, but you go over to the certain other areas in the East Coast and up in the Northeast, it's going to be probably about 170 to 180. And then, but you get up in the Northwest, up around Seattle and stuff, it's approaching 300.
And I think my point was, because you're right, but a 34% increase in revenue over the next 2 years, if you budget out the difference, I mean, it's a massive increase. It's massively.
And you think about what money costs. It's, all-time low. And the cost of getting a loan and be able to do some incredible things and have that kind of payoff is incredible. And even there's doctors out there that are, if nothing else, they don't know what else to do, and they're tired, and they just are kind of fed up. They're ready to I've literally had clients just ready to, I show up because they want to retire or they get out of the business, and they ask me to do a facelift so they can make it more desirable to sell. What's so interesting is 90% of those, they turn around and take it off the market and go back to work. And what does that tell us about psychologically? It's interesting is, what else can you spend when you're doing a facelift? And sometimes it's literally putting lipstick on a pig. I mean, I don't want to be that crass, but you might have a situation where you might have 3 years left on your lease and you're just kind of wavering and you don't lose an energy. what else can you spend, anywhere from 20 to 50, $60 a square foot and do some really nice little remodeling. Maybe it's just carpet and paint, but if you could do that and get rid of those things that really bother you, maybe open up the reception, make the reception, people walk in and have a wow and make a nice bathroom, and then just clean up the office. That's one thing I've encouraged dentists to do, is just literally walk through their office and look around and be the patient for the day and experience what the patient experiences. Close your eyes, get your mind clear, and just be a guest. And what do they see? And all of a sudden they open their eyes to these big piles of stuff and all this clutter and all these things that don't work for them. But the return on that, what do you spend, and typically can pay it off in a year's time? You get a 10% return for that, is a national average. That's huge just for putting that lipstick on. But what it does is it grows you, and then it allows you to be ready for doing a major move or major improvement or whatever that.
Yeah, we do something very similar. Every year we have either a team member, and then I try to at least every few years have somebody who has no connection with the practice come in as a new patient and write down everything as critically as they can. Every little corner of wallpaper it can't be the dentist, because the dentist, it's too familiar, right?
You're too brave too. That's pretty brave to do that.
Yeah, and then we put it in 3 buckets, right? It's the low hanging fruit that we're going to do now. It's the, boy, we should plan to do this at some point, when in the future, when we see that 10% return, then we'll do it. Then that's not going to happen or until we have like a big remodel, right? Or it's really hard. Like my building has parking is restricted, and I've tried every solution in the world, right? But it's going to be on the list every single time until something something dramatic happens, right? So yeah,
kudos for you. That's huge. So many dentists do not do that simple little thing, and they don't realize how hurtful it is to their practice because they haven't opened their eyes. When I do lectures at the schools or for some of the case study groups, I got some slides that just show some offices of pictures I've done over the years, and their mouth drops. They're going, but these are reality. But so many of us get so closed to what we see because it becomes standard, and it's just not even on our radar.
100%. You're just going to work fixing teeth, and you forget that chair that's looks like it was from 1980s is from the 1980s, right?
Or it might have that broken arm, or it might have something that just doesn't quite work, or the motor doesn't work and it doesn't take them up or down all the way. And it's those little things, but those are the things that cause that dentist over years, it's just baggage that falls on them. And after a time, they just get tired and they can't figure out what it is other than, I'm just depressed. I just can't do this. I'm just tired. And it's those little things that just keep piling up, clutter on the desk, and just all the things that we face.
I'd like to ask you your opinion on something, because I didn't tell you this before the podcast, other than I've been thinking about office design a little bit. And one of the things that I thought, if I were to redesign my office today, or if I was building a new office, which probably a lot of people listening today are ripe to build an office and should definitely get your book to help them with that. But I feel like the number one person I would be designing for is my team member. I think that too often the workflow, we look at patient flow, we look at what does a dentist want, but to find and retain the best team members is really going to be the biggest challenge. I think high demand pay for patients is going to be high. Patients are only there for, a few times a year, maybe, right? And they're there to get the high quality work done. But the team members are there all the time. And I think that break rooms and the functional pieces that the team members use, I think is largely overlooked in dental design. And so what's your thoughts on that?
Multifold.
What's that?
Multifold. So a couple things. So I'll be honest here. So number one, when a dentist doesn't take it upon himself to be the director and make it about him, I see that he struggles and the process slows down dramatically. But I agree 100% about the value of the team member and making them important. So it's a two-edged sword here. So, but first and foremost is the design should always be around the dentist. For flow function, it's about reducing his stress or her stress. It's about making it efficient. And I talk about that. I have 60 pages just talk about office design in the book. And I dissect it and really think through it and the importance of different zones and what happens when you mix them. And so the issue is, that payoff, that return, that 34% national average increase, that is about designing it for the dentist. Because really, when the dentist is excited to go to work and his team members are excited, and then the patients catch on, and it just spirals up. And conversely, if it's over-designed or if it's under-designed, you have the negative process happening in that going on. But you touched on something very key. I've seen too many offices where it becomes a self-centered approach, where the dentist makes it all about him. And the dentist that really succeeds is the one that takes on the abundance role, and the one that really is about helping others, and I'm here to make a difference in people's lives. And when you build those connections and relationships, not only with the patients, but with their team members. I mean, I was so excited just a couple of weeks ago when I was talking with one of my clients, and it was our first meeting, in fact, and the staff members, the team members were coming in and apologizing. They were apologizing for interrupting because they wanted to say goodbye to the doctor. And she was, it was the end of her day. And I thought, how exciting is that? They felt that much connection that they wanted to make sure, hey, you have a good evening. And, my son came in, I wanted to introduce you, and just that kind of relationship. But what gets left out is, you're right, the break room. What gets left out is a staff bathroom, and making sure that you have a place for lockers and a place to put things and a place to congregate and create a unity and create a team is so, so important. And so it's right up there with the importance of the number of operatories. I've had some offices designed where they insist that they have just this little galley or this little closet, and that's okay for them. That's all right. But you also look at what is their payoff, and everybody's different.
I think the average dental practice probably should add 2 more operatories. I would guess, right? I always talk about how, if you look at Target, for example, they have 50 checkout lanes, and 80% of the time there's 10 being used at most, right? But on Mother's Day and the day after Thanksgiving, right, you need to have that capacity. And if you have 5 patients come in with broken teeth, right, it doesn't take many days like that to pay for those extra operatories, right?
It doesn't.
Yeah.
No,
So I would encourage anybody who is looking at building an office, which a lot of dental practices should, or remodeling, or getting, refreshing their practice, which most dental practices, I think, could use that refresh. To read your book, what would be the best way for them to get a copy?
Well, they can jump online, and you can find it by DentalEase. It's spelled just the way it sounds, and it's one word. But you can go to dreamdentalpractice.net. And then also look up Denco Dental Construction. We have a link on that also.
Great. Well, Steve, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I greatly appreciate it. And thanks for bringing your knowledge to the dental teams listening.
Well, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.